All right, welcome back to Practify, the podcast where we go inside the minds of private practice owners who've successfully scaled their practice and are open to sharing the strategies and mindset behind their growth. Today's guest is Joel Feren, better known as the Nutrition Guy. Joel has become one of Australia's most trusted nutrition voices, shaping national conversations through TV, radio, and brand campaigns with household names like ALDI and Sanitarium. He's proof that dietitians don't just have to stick to private practice, they can build authority in media, communications, and consulting. So without further ado, Joel, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Gilad. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Joel, most people obviously know you today as the Nutrition Guy, a media voice, consultant, and dietitian with a national platform, right? But I want to rewind way back before all of that. So first things first, like what was life in those early days of dietetics? Like what did life look like for you?
It's a great question. Sometimes I do reflect on my journey. So to give you and the listeners a little bit of insight, I guess I was a mature age student. So I graduated when I was 28. And back then I used to describe myself as short-sighted. I knew what I was doing today. I had a vague idea of tomorrow, but thereafter I literally had no idea. And to be honest with you, I first started in dietetics wanting to be a clinical dietitian. I wanted to work in the hospital environment. But as it would turn out, having had some clinical experience when I was at uni, I pulled the pin on that straight away. So it was a small pivot and thought that I would be a private practitioner. My dad's a GP and he sees patients day in, day out. And I thought I'd sort of follow a similar model. And I guess I did. I mean, I had interests outside of private practice, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But in the early days, I took on a contract role in aged care, and about midway through 2013, so about 6 months after I graduated, after a short stint of travel, I dived right into private practice, started consulting just one day a week in a small local medical practice and started building a referral network, started building a bit of a name, a bit of a profile, started dabbling in other areas, I guess, sort of from a marketing perspective and trying to get new clients. And I guess things evolved and here we are 12 years later and still dabbling a little bit in private practice, but doing a whole range of different things that I never thought were even possible within the nutrition dietetic space.
And when you came to that realization that like the clinical work probably wasn't for you, like in the hospitals and stuff like that, were there any specific challenges or frustrations that were kind of associated with that work specifically?
I just realized, to be honest, it was week one of my clinical placement that I just wasn't cut out for it. I liked the idea, and I still do. I like the idea of building and fostering relationships over time, getting to know someone, and really having those supportive relationships evolve over time. And I felt like the clinical environment didn't lend itself nicely to that. You sort of saw patients maybe once, maybe twice, and then you sort of had to let them go. They were discharged, and there was no real chance for follow-up. And I like the idea of following up and keeping track of people, monitoring their progress and adjusting things as needed. So yeah, it didn't all fall into a heap, to be honest, because I sort of pivoted quite quickly. I mean, I also had an interest in sports nutrition back then, so I knew that was another option. But it's interesting that I was sort of able to, adjust where I could see myself going.
I've got an interesting question for you because I feel like in modern day society, it's pretty simple to make that shift. But if I had to ask you, Joel, if you had to go back like 50, 100 years, do you think the shift that you made to like the more online, consulting, media, radio, TV stuff, like, do you think that would have been possible like 50, 100 years back in time?
Well, glad I'll just share. I'm not that old. I do liken myself to a dinosaur, but I'm middle-aged, not quite 50. But I don't know how to answer that. I mean, obviously, with social media space, the answer would be no, because social media didn't exist then, uh, and podcasts and the like, and probably the level that we are now would be very, very different. But here we are in modern times, and what I would stress to listeners and to viewers is, roll with it. Let's use some of these wonderful technologies and advances and mediums to be able to project our message and build our brand and authority. So, it's just embracing it.
So Joel, walk me through this evolution. You've stopped, you've left the clinical placement, you're now like starting to build up your network, you're starting to get referrals. Kind of talk me through that, like from the very start of when you actually made that jump to the point where it was like, okay, like this is going to be sustainable, like this is what I want to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, it was sustainable up until a point. But yeah, I guess it was July 2013. I'll never forget, actually, my very first client. I couldn't get my head around the fact that I was finally qualified. I was a professional, and people were going to come and listen to me and make changes accordingly and pay me. For me, I'll never forget that feeling of seeing my very first client and going like, whatever happens from here, it's been a success. But uh, things evolved. It was, yeah, as I said, 2013. I actually left that practice in 2014, towards the end of 2014, for a variety of different reasons. Joined another practice, and slowly over time, actually, I started practicing from 4 different clinics. And I was in discussion with an orthopedic surgeon about consulting from his rooms. So decided to pull the pin on that one. To be honest, I felt like it was too much. But yeah, I was consulting from 4 different rooms, and as I said, dabbling in other areas, which I'm sure we'll explore, but exploring things like media and social media and content creation and things that sort of took my interest away from private practice in the end. But I was in private practice from 2013 till the start of COVID, to about May 2020.
Have you always referred to yourself as a nutrition guy, or when about did that come by?
No, I felt like, and I say this to my students as well, because I do some sessional lecturing at uni, and it's all about identifying your point of difference. And for me, I'm a bit like a unicorn. There are very few male dietitians, and I really wanted to focus in on that. And I do a lot of work in the men's health space, certainly an area of interest, if not, specialty. And I felt that at the time I was early 30s, and I kind of wanted a name that would really shine a light on who I was and what I did, and who I served. And the nutrition guy felt right. Interestingly enough, as I've rolled over into the next decade, I've pulled back a little bit, and um, people may notice that my website's changed. I'm now just Joel Feren. So my URL is joelferen.com.au, and kind of shifted away from the nutrition guy. I felt like I had the runs on the board and the experience and the age and wisdom to make the call to practice under my own name. But I still want to retain some that link to the nutrition guy, because I feel like it kind of fits. It still suits, but as I'm getting older and more experienced, I wanted to claim that ownership of my own name and sort of leave the moniker, I guess, to the side.
So Joel, obviously your path isn't the traditional route, right? It's slightly different. Did you ever feel resistance from any peers or the profession itself when you started stepping into the media and communication side of things?
Certainly no resistance from that perspective. I think it was encouraged, and I think I was a media spokesperson for Dietitians Australia for many years. And so there was obviously a need for dietitians to be in the media, and I love seeing colleagues and peers representing not only the association but the whole profession at large. obviously with the level of misinformation and disinformation out there, it's great to correct those wrongs. So I think it's been well embraced that dietitians, nutrition professionals have a place in media and comms. Maybe the level of resistance I've felt is around brand partnerships. Um, and I can see points from both sides where the dietitians should be in bed with food industry. It's always been a tricky space to navigate. Personally, I feel like I've done a good job of it. Probably say no a lot more than I say yes. But I think, I mean, just on that, happy to touch on it. I think there's a great opportunity for dietitians to work closely with food brands, not only to improve the food supply and nutritional quality of foods, but also to from a marketing and positioning perspective. At the end of the day, people want to know what to eat, and they want to know what foods are good and which brands to stock in their pantry. And who better to market and position products than a dietitian?
Did you ever have any fears or doubts when you kind of had to push through that phase of now, like, I'm going to be putting myself out there publicly? Like, I'm going to be all over the internet, all over social media. Or did you kind of have the personality where you're like, sweet, like happy to go on?
It was a bit more of the latter. I mean, the latter. I can't fly by the seat of my pants, to be honest. I mean, I guess once you have a public-facing role and you put yourself out there, there's always going to be, you've got to take the good with the bad. My face was on 1 million packets of Weet-Bix at one point, so a lot of people were seeing my face at breakfast. I'm not quite sure if that was a clever um, marketing ambition from Weet-Bix at the time, but hey, it was great for me and great for building my brand and profile. But yeah, there's always going to be, I guess, elements in this day and age, power of social media and media in general, where there was pushback, and particularly in the nutrition space as well, where every second person is a nutrition expert. I often say that anyone who eats is a nutrition expert basically these days. So everyone's got an opinion. Opinion's not always based on fact or evidence, but yeah, a lot of people would push back, and I've had experiences where there's been some negativity. Went through a bit of a stressful time a number of years ago where I guess I was bullied online for my position and for work that I'd done with Weet-Bix and with some other whole grain companies. But that's sort of, I mean, by and large, it's actually been really positive. And if I think back to where I was when I graduated, even when I was studying, I never thought it was possible. I never thought that's what I wanted to do, but I've grown in confidence and grown in competence, I'd like to think as well, with experience, and really happy to be, championing nutrition and championing good products. So if the opportunity presented itself, I just went with it.
So Joel, I know that you mentioned you aren't that old right now, right? But looking back in your experience thus far, and just in your journey up until now, was there any risks that you kind of took to get to where you are today? Or was there any decision that you made that was kind of a pivotal turning point for you?
I think there's been risks that I've taken along the way. I mean, even from starting out, there was always risks in that. Risks joining a new practice. I guess the biggest risk I took was, it was 2018, and I had a cushy job. I was doing 2 days a week in aged care with an agency and working in private practice. And there was a sort of a tipping point where I could see that there were more opportunities coming my way as a contractor or consultant, and decided to pull the pin on my 2-day week aged care job and leave my salary and all the perks that had, and went headfirst into, I guess, the freelance life. That was 2018, and I've been able to make a pretty good fist of it up until now, 2025. So I think that was the biggest risk. I mean, now life looks a little bit different for me because I've got two little kids, and there's all the stresses that come with that, and making sure that there's enough food on the table and bills are getting paid. But I love working for myself. I mean, I sort of liken it to a drug sometimes, which is probably a terrible analogy, but it's a bit like a drug. I don't know where my next hit's coming from, but when the hits come, it can be exhilarating. So, there's an element of risk there. And I think that's why I have expanded in the services that I provide. I often talk about the pillars of my work, and it's things like recipe work, media, corporate health, presenting, and the marketing side of things. So sort of, I don't think I'm spreading myself too thin, but at least there's a number of offerings there that will hopefully generate enough work. And I guess up until now has been able to generate enough work.
How do you think your evolution from clinician to media voice kind of reflects what's possible for other dietitians in general?
Well, as I've said, there's amazing opportunities beyond the tradition, beyond the I guess the norms. I mean, when I first started working, when I first graduated, it was the opportunities were pretty much in private practice, hospital, community health setting, or working in food service. But if you scratch the surface a little bit more, I think there's a bazillion opportunities for dietitians. And I think hopefully, I'm testament to that we can work in content creation, we can work in marketing, we can work in media, comms. There's room for so much beyond sort of those traditional roles within dietetics, and I think that's what's really, really exciting about the profession. I mean, I think there's a number of challenges. As I've already said, there's that level of misinformation and disinformation and mistrust in experts, particularly around food, and also there's the evolution of AI and where that's going to lead us. But I think by and large, there's a lot more positives than negatives, and that evolution is possible. And I challenge the younger ones to think about what their careers might look like in the next 10 years. I mean, God knows I'm going to evolve too, and my work's going to change, and opportunities will come my way that maybe I didn't expect, and maybe that's the fun of it too.
If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice about building a career in nutrition, what would it be?
Ooh, I think be open to opportunities, be open to pivot, see what the market's calling out for. I mean, one of my peers, I'll never forget, she got up on stage and she was talking about some of the opportunities for dietitians. And she said, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So, I mean, I'll say this, maybe take it with a grain of salt, but, say yes to what you can, and say yes to opportunities that you didn't even think were possible. I mean, never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be on TV or producing recipes, or that my face was going to be on a million boxes of a breakfast cereal. But roll with it, pivot, and see what the market's calling out for, and see what opportunities might come your way. When I reflect on my career, or when I think back to where I was in 2013 in my grad year, I thought I was going to park myself in a medical office and see patients one-on-one, and it would just be a bit of a revolving door. But my career to date certainly hasn't looked like that.
Joel, one of the things I admire most about your career is that you've obviously taken spaces that dietitians obviously see as pretty closed off. They kind of see it as a closed door. And you've obviously managed to turn that closed door into platforms for your messaging, right? So I guess when you think back about your first media opportunity, what actually got you through that front door?
I'm not the pioneer in this space. There were dietitians who preceded me who were active in the media, and I I admired them. I could see what they were doing. I could see the impact they were having. So for me, it was trying to emulate that. I'm a bit of a door knocker. I won't settle for no. Um, and I'm persistent and obviously ambitious, and I think that probably goes without saying. And I think that's the type A personality in all of us. But that very first media opportunity came about because I wrote an article, and I think I emailed the same article to the editor 3 times before she finally got back to me and was like, "Look, we like the ideas that you've presented, but we want to write the article ourselves. But how about we interview you for it?" And that's how it started, and it kind of snowballed from there. And I love that I can be really, really efficient in terms of my messaging. One example was an article I was contacted about, provide a comment for, was viewed over 100,000 times. And as much as I love working with individuals, you'd have 100,000 hours, contact hours, to reach that same number. And for me to speak to a journalist and for them to write the article and to be seen by 100,000 pairs of eyeballs, I mean, that's pretty impressive, and it's a fabulous way of getting a wider message out there. So I was terrible when I first started in media, but it was I loved it. I loved the thrill of it. It was exhilarating, and I wanted more of it. It was never really at that stage. I mean, I think about it now as a wonderful means to promote yourself and build your brand and authority. But back then, I just wanted to get the message out there. And I mean, that's always held true. That's always been one of the reasons why I do media. I just want to right the wrongs that exist out there in social media land and TV land, and want to put out a positive message about nutrition and hopefully change perceptions with science-backed strategies.
How is communicating to the public via media different from talking to patients on a one-to-one basis?
It's actually pretty similar. And at the end of the day, it's we've got the knowledge. It's how we present it, how we package it up, how to make it sexy, how to sell it in a really positive light. I mean, and it's got to be applicable to the audience. It's got to resonate. So you've got to, if it's catchy puns or analogies, it's just about finding a method that gets that cut through, and that's what we want with our clients when we're meeting them in private practice, or when we're speaking to a mass audience. We want to get that cut through. So I like to think of myself as a little bit of a witty and punny guy, and for me, that's the challenge of disseminating a message that is going to resonate and is going to change perceptions and change behavior, because that's essentially what we're doing. We're trying to do, at least.
So would you be able to share an example of taking something complex in nutrition science and then simplifying it into a clear, engaging message? Because I think that so many practitioners get stuck with this awesome thing that they want to present, this awesome thing that they want to sell, but they just don't know how to simplify their own messaging. So can you kind of give the before and after of the complex in nutrition science, and then putting it into, as you said, a clear, engaging, presentable way?
It's an interesting question. I don't know if I've got a specific example, but nutrition science is complex, but at the end of the day, what do we want our audience to know? What do we want them to take away? What do we want them to do? And if we're looking at something like dairy, we can talk about, something as complex as something like the dairy matrix and all the wonderful nutrients that are in dairy that can help promote bone health. But at the end of the day, people don't need to know the ins and outs of that. But if you can put out a message that really does cut through, there's a strategy called MAPS. So you want to make your point, and you want to anchor your point, and you want to give it perspective. And the perspective is where you can get that real cut through. So, for rolling with dairy. I mean, this is just off the top of my head, but you could say, dairy is good for you. That's making your point. You want to anchor it, and you can say it's got a raft of vitamins, from calcium, phosphorus, important for strong, healthy bones, protein for strong muscles, as well as vitamin A, vitamin B12, etc. And then to give it some perspective, wear your milk moustache with pride. And at the end of the day, that's probably what readers or listeners are going to take away. They're going to go, oh, there was that dietitian interviewed, and yeah, he was banging on about the nutrients found in dairy, but he said, hey, wear your milk moustache with pride. And I remember wearing my milk moustache with pride when I was a little one at school, and we got given a glass of milk at recess. And that's what you want. They don't need to know the ins and outs. I mean, I just read an article, a research paper earlier about lutein and how it can impact our vascular health, thereby improving brain function and cognitive function later in life. People don't need to know the ins and outs, the methods involved, the results. They just need top line. Lutein's found in dark green leafy vegetables, eggs, avocado, and if you eat more of it, it can actually protect your blood vessels and help keep dementia at bay later in life. Like, honestly, that's as simple as it needs to be. But obviously, understanding the level of knowledge of your audience, I think, is really, really important. Not getting too bogged down in the science, breaking it down into simple, quick messages. The old KISS adage, keep it simple, stupid. But if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, people probably aren't going to get it.
For a practitioner who wants to dip their toe into media, what would be one first small tip or piece of advice that you'd give them?
Just dip your toes in, give it a crack. If you're passionate about something, if you think that you can get a message out there and get it out to a wide audience, like, I'm all for just jumping in head first, and you'll learn different strategies. You'll learn what works, what doesn't work, what doesn't resonate over time. But I think there's a wonderful opportunity for more nutrition professionals to play in this space. And I don't see it as people treading on my toes. I don't need to be the only dietitian. I'm certainly not the only dietitian that does media work. But if we can get more dietitians who are media savvy to get a message across, I think that's going to lift the whole profession, and hopefully do its intended purpose of improving the health and the nutrition of the wider public. I mean, that's the business that we're in. It's not really about self-promotion. It's about getting a message across.
Joel, I just want to shift gears quickly. I just want to play a quick game of this or that. So the way it works, it's pretty simple. I'm going to give you two options. You've got to pick one, but no explanations whatsoever. Like, just your true gut answer. All right.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. So first things first. TV or radio?
TV.
Live interview or pre-recorded?
Either or. Can I be a fence sitter? Is that allowed?
We'll let you have it for that one.
Okay. It's kind of same from my perspective.
Speaking to practitioners or speaking to the public?
Speaking to the public.
Brand campaign or patient consult?
Brand campaign.
Storytelling or science?
Storytelling.
Long form articles or quick sound bites?
Long form articles.
Corporate keynote or cooking demo?
I enjoy them both, but probably cooking demo, because I can give some. It's not always about the food, it's about providing nutrition and that science. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Men's health focus or general nutrition focus?
Men's health focus.
Our second last one, being in front of the camera or working behind the scenes?
Working in front of it.
And then our final one, big brand partnership or building your own independent platform?
I think the big the big brand partnership.
There we go. Joel, another part of your career that stands out to me is the way that you've worked with brands, right? For many practitioners, once again, like this feels like a completely different world in a completely different realm. The contracts, the campaigns, the negotiations. Can you kind of pull back the curtains on what this actually looks like, just from a super high level overview, and then we'll kind of get into some more specific questions around brand partnerships.
Yeah, of course. Happy for you to lead the conversation.
Perfect. So I guess first things first, Joel, like when a company actually approaches you, right? What do you kind of look for before you just say yes?
A lot of things have to align. It's having a greater understanding of what the actual campaign looks like, what the product is. That's a big one. What the overall mission is, what the nutritional quality of the product, as well as the general aims of the campaign, any of the comms that are going out. There's a lot to factor in. I mean, what the deliverables are as well, and what the expectations are as well. And I think obviously we can get really into nitty gritty, but what the contract looks like, exclusions, how long you're tied to that campaign or to that brand as well, and potentially opportunities may extend from that, or what opportunities may you have to turn down as a result of working with one particular brand in a particular category. There are lots of moving parts to working with brands.
Are you able to handle all these comms, analyze all the contracts, manage negotiations within your own capacity? Or do you kind of have a team or a PA potentially in place to help you with all of this?
Yeah, it's a good point. I've gone through both. I guess, represented myself and done a lot of my own negotiations, reviewing contracts. I don't have a legal brain or a legal eye, so I guess having an understanding of when to seek out that help. But at the same time, I've worked with, I guess, PR managers and agents in the past who've sort of done a lot of that heavy lifting for me. I'm sort of back at the stage where I don't have representation, and I tend to do that all on my own. And I feel like I've learned a lot along the way, made a few boo boos, but you wouldn't be human if you didn't make mistakes, and I guess the goal is to learn from them. But yeah, like I said, there's lots of moving parts, and I think while I've learned a lot along the way, like I had no clue what to charge or what campaigns would look like, or how long you were tied to brands. And it's really about unpacking it all and asking the right questions. But I guess my very first brand campaign was working with a peanut butter brand back in 2016, and they approached me, and this all happened by accident, I should say. I didn't go looking for it, but I kind of call myself the accidental consultant. But I was approached by a brand, and this PR manager reached out to me and said, "You're the only dietitian I know. Are you able to create some recipes for this brand I'm working with?" And like I said earlier, like, take opportunities where they come. And my approach was yes. It was a hell yes. And I look back now. What was that, 9 years ago? And I terribly undercharged, and I don't even think we had a contract in place. There were no exclusions from my memory, but sort of rolled with it, and it worked, and I've been able to build on that, obviously. But my big recommendation was seek help where you can. I mean, we can't do it all as health professionals, where that's our that's our expertise, where we have a wonderful skill set, but particularly when it comes to brand partnerships and contracts, it's a limited skill set. So seek out that help where you can. And I think it's really about building a powerful network of people that can really support you. I liken clients to a football club, and I think we're the same. Think about a football team. They have not only their coach, but they have all the other players around them too, all the other coaches, the support staff, the strength and conditioning coach. And it's the same with us. Like, we can't do it all on our own. So if you need an agent, or you need a mentor or a business advisor, or you need a lawyer, like, tap into these networks where you can.
I guess, Joel, if you're just getting started, like in this realm, right? It's not so easy to turn down these deals. Like, yes, it must align with your values. Yes, it must align with your morals. But as you said, like, when you're getting started, not that you take on anything and everything, but as you said, like, it comes very naturally. So what would you say to the average person who is just getting started? And is it that weird purgatory where, like, they're starting to get deals on the table, but the thing is that, like, it doesn't necessarily align with who they are and what they believe?
If there are doubts, say no. Say no straight away, or iron them out as best as you can, and then reevaluate the situation. But I've been fortunate enough to work, I've mentioned Weet-Bix, and I often make the joke that doesn't matter what I do for the rest of my career, I'll always be remembered as the Weet-Bix guy. And, the stars just completely aligned with that campaign. I was always a big fan of Weet-Bix. The deliverables were awesome because I got to be on TV and do TV commercials and speak at events and create recipes. So all those deliverables were just like amazing at the time. And once again, things I never thought possible. I had no clue about contract negotiations and the fees to charge, but in hindsight, that didn't really matter. I protected myself and consulted a lawyer, but if you can, at least, there's got to be an alignment in values and mission. You've obviously got to be capable of doing the work too. But if it smells a bit fishy, then you just don't do it. Just don't do it. I remember I've got a friend who is a business advisor, and I was running an opportunity by him, and he just said, nah, there's too many ifs there. So as I said earlier, often I'll say no more than I say yes to opportunities that come my way. And you've just got to have that careful eye, because while it might be great now, these things can leave or have repercussions down the line. So you want to protect yourself as best as you can. And it's still a tricky space for me to work in, and no doubt for others who have not as much experience. But there's wonderful opportunities working with brands. And I think that aligning yourself with a brand that, when you sing from the same hymn book, it can really create a wonderful sweet spot, both for you and the brand.
How would you say that brand consulting has kind of complemented your traditional dietetic practice?
My dietetic practice, as like I suggested earlier, has certainly evolved. But for me, the mission stays true. It's really about promoting good food, good nutrition, advice that aligns with my philosophy as well. So working with brands just allows me to reach a bigger audience. And a lot of the brand work I do is actually recipe work. So there's no real major campaign, or they're not necessarily putting me out on radio or TV. And, I'm not necessarily flying the flag for a particular brand. I'm just creating recipes in the background and showing how the everyday Joe create wonderful, nutritious recipes using a particular product. So for me, it's the how-to piece that is often missing. I find amongst my peers, not to be too critical, but I think as dietitians and nutrition professionals, we're very good at talking about the what's, what to eat, veggies, fruit, whole grains, lean proteins, yada, yada, yada. And we talk a lot about the whys, because they help keep us healthy and they're a wonderful source of different nutrients. But I think what the general public lacks in terms of knowledge is that how-to piece. Okay, it's great to know that fruits and veggies are good for us and whole grains are good, but how do I get that on my plate? How do I cook a meal that contains those things that's still going to be delicious. So a lot of my work, I feel, is at that intersection of food and nutrition, and understanding the nutrition, but also having that culinary knowledge to be able to put up a recipe and put up a final dish that is not only going to taste good, but is also going to tick a number of those nutrient boxes too.
Joel, I just want to touch on social media quickly. Like, you've tapped into, like, obviously, when you become a clinician, you learn the science, right? Like, you learn the complex stuff, but now you actually need to turn that science into, as you touched on, like, an attractable offer. Like, people need to want it, right? So if we have to kind of shift this conversation to the marketing side of things, how do you position yourself in social media? Because you're not really taught that, right? Like, you're taught the science.
Yeah. There's obviously an art and a science to it, and honestly, I don't think I've mastered it. And my social media has evolved over time. I think from my perspective, I didn't want to be another nutrition professional on social media banging on about nutrition or the what's to eat and the why to eat. I really wanted to be that conduit for the how. And so if you go on my social media these days, it's a lot of recipes. There might be little snippets of advice and some little hacks and tips and touching on, what's good for particular things. But at the end of the day, I just want to put out food that tastes good and food that is nutritious. And for me, that's the sweet spot for me. That's where I want to sit in that culinary space. Because we don't eat food and we don't eat nutrients. We eat meals, and I want to package that up in a really wonderful way. And I want to encourage people. I guess my main mission really is to get people cooking more and gaining some of those skills, because I feel like it's a lost art. So if I reflect on my career when I retire in 20 or 30 years, probably more 30 years, hopefully I'll look back and go, I did a good job because I was able to inspire people to get back in the kitchen. People might choose a different angle for their social media presence and the content that they want to put out. But for me, that's how I feel like I can have a big impact. So I don't know if I'm the best person to talk about social media strategy, to be honest, because it's been a long, hard slog, but I'd like to think I've at least got a connected, engaged audience who enjoy my recipes and at the end of the day, replicate those recipes. That's the goal.
Once again, just as a note of social media, and not to dive too deep into it, but do you manage everything that goes up on your social media pages within your own capacity? Or do you have like videographers and editors and the whole story?
It's 95% me. I find it very hard to let go. Like, this is me, this is my puppy, this is my work, this is my neck on the line. So I've got a little bit of outside help. Obviously things like photography, getting some professional headshots, that's stuff I outsource. I've got a couple of videos as well on my social media that I've got a graphic designer to do, but I think at best it's one or two. But all the recipes, that's me. That's my iPhone and whatever other equipment I use and food styling. That's all me. And I'd like to think as well that we've talked a bit about evolution, but like people will see that evolution. Like I've 20. But in 2013, I never thought I'd be doing half the things I'm doing now. Like, I never thought I'd be gaining skills in food styling and food photography and some of the culinary work I do. But in 2025, here we are. So I would love to be able to outsource more, but I haven't quite worked out what I would outsource, to be honest.
Joel, stepping into media, brand work, it on the public eye, like, it's far more about than just strategy, right? It obviously takes a big shift, like internally, mentally. So I just want to touch on and explore what it actually took for you personally to build that confidence and kind of reshape your identity as more than just a clinician. So when you first started putting yourself out there, were there any fears or doubts that initially came up?
There were always doubts. I don't want to say there's doubts now. There's probably still some creeping in, but yeah, there were dietitians I really admired in the media, and they do a wonderful job. But they probably haven't always done a wonderful job. They've learned that along the way. So for me, it was all about building experience. And I didn't throw myself in the deep end, to be honest, either. Like, I wasn't prepared to do, 6 o'clock news as a new grad, or even as a dietitian 3 years out of uni. That wasn't what I was aiming for. I was looking for the security of speaking to a journalist over the phone or emailing responses, and building that confidence over time. But I think the more we know, the more you can learn, the more you practice. Practice is hard. The better you'll get. So not only the more confident, but you'll be able to be more competent, and hopefully lead with that. The best foot. Put your best foot forward. But having an understanding that you're not going to be at the best of your game on day dot. We never expect a new athlete to run 100 meters in less than 10 seconds on their first go. They might get there eventually, but having that long-term view in mind, I think is really important. And reflection's always been big with me, is how can I improve? What can I do differently? Presenting, and certainly the media stuff I do, was never a strong suit. I shied away from public speaking at school. I used to get wobbly knees speaking in front of my class in high school, and never did I think I'd be speaking on national TV or doing TV commercials, or cooking on live TV. But over time, that confidence grew, and I'm so glad it has, because it's been fulfilling, very rewarding, both personally but also professionally. So to the earlier point I made, I want to see more and more people delve into this space. I don't want to see social media influencers interviewed on the 6 o'clock news. I want to see nutrition professionals talking about the latest in nutrition, but really dumbing it down, and really, putting out a powerful message that's going to resonate with the audience. And I think there's a lot to learn from social media influencers. They're quite captivating. It's not just how they look, but it's certainly about their messaging, and the type of content that they can curate. So don't put out the same message as a social media influencer. Maybe there's some other tips and strategies you can learn from a social media influencer.
I guess with everything, Joel, in life, there's no light without dark, right? Like you touched on earlier that you were bullied for a certain campaign or something along those lines, but I just want to ask you, you've obviously made it to where you are today, and like you got through that bullying, right? So I guess the question I'm trying to ask is, how do you handle the negativity and the criticism and skepticism that actually comes from the public?
I don't know if I've got an insightful answer for you, Gilad. I think like with most things, it passes. And I think if you can, at the end of the day, I was comfortable with what I did and what I put out there. So there were people who weren't, and that's fine. That's life. So if, upon reflection, I look back and I go, well, I was proud to work on that campaign. I was proud to put out those messages. And if people wanted to take pot shots and bully me online, it was probably more a reflection on them than on me. But staying true to your mission and your purpose, and obviously it goes without saying, but having a supportive network in your corner, I think, is also important. But it's not something I reflect on these days. I mean, we're talking 5-6 years ago at least, where I copped that level of criticism, and it was rough at the time. But by and large, it's actually been a really positive experience. working in media, working in social media, and working in brand campaigns and the like. I think it's what I would say to listeners is just be aware that that's a possibility, and maybe develop some skills and lean on people when you need, because there may be times when you do have critics in your corner, and it's just about making sure that you're well equipped to navigate that tricky time. So I don't know if that quite answers your question, but yeah, it while it was a tricky time, it passed, and I learned and I grew from it. And you know what? By ruffling some feathers, I hopefully made a really good impression on a larger number of people that were criticizing me.
What daily habits or routines help you stay grounded while being in such a public-facing role?
It's another great question. I don't know if I've got necessarily daily habits. I mean, I talk a lot about non-negotiables. I mean, for me, I've got non-negotiables, and I'm a dad. That's my big thing. I love spending time with my kids. I make time to have breakfast. I drive my daughter to school. I'm at home at dinner time. I love sharing my day, and more than that, listening to the stories that my kids share, and having that time with my wife as well. I mean, that's for me is really precious, and I really try to protect that. But beyond that, things I do for myself, exercise. I'm really big on moving my body, and trying to make that time for daily movement. And I know you're not in Australia, Gillard, but my favourite football team, who I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with, I'll always make time to watch them, or go to games, or at the very least follow what's happening. So I guess these are the things that keep me grounded. And but yeah, first and foremost, I might be a media dietitian, but I'm a dad to two little ones, and for me that brings me the most joy.
For any practitioner listening who fears judgment, what's one piece of advice that you'd give them about stepping into bigger opportunities?
I think you don't have to do media. You don't have to be present on social media. You could be just like I wanted to be, that dietitian or that health professional parked in a medical practice seeing patients one-on-one. I think there's enormous gains to be had when you're prepared to be doing media and being active on social media, but it doesn't have to be that way. So if you're dead set against it, it sounds cliched, but stay true to yourself. Do what you feel comfortable doing, but know that with time you might feel more comfortable, or you might change your stance on things, and you might gain that confidence, and then I would encourage you to wholly embrace it. But at the end of the day, as much as I would love to see more dietitians working in media, and other health professionals too, of course, if you're just not cut out that way, then just don't do it. It's not for everyone. So use it to your advantage if you see fit, but at the same time, there are plenty of other things that you could be doing to champion your cause and to have a really fulfilling and meaningful career.
Joel, you obviously shared so much about your journey from the clinic days, week, to the media. To end off, I just want to give our listeners a clear picture of what you're doing right now, who you serve, and where they could potentially connect with you. So first things first, what kind of work are you most focused on right now?
For me, it's those key pillars that I alluded to earlier. For me, I love the diversity. I love the variety of my work. So no 2 days are ever the same. So today I've been working on an article that I'm writing. I also had a client that I was meeting with earlier, because I'm dabbling a little bit more in the private practice work again, and seeing some private clients online. Tomorrow I'm planning some recipe work. Last week I had a big keynote that I was working on. I've got some live events coming up. So for me, it's a real mixed bag, and that's what keeps it interesting. And I wake up on a Monday morning excited and enthusiastic for the week ahead. Sometimes I've got things in my calendar, which is great, and sometimes I'm waiting for the phone to ring or my inbox to ping me with a message with an exciting opportunity coming up. But I think at this stage of my career, there's no way I could pigeonhole myself into doing one particular thing. I love that variety and changing it up. It certainly keeps it interesting. In terms of where people can find me, my main social media work is on Instagram. So I'm the nutrition guy. It's at _nutrition guy. But I'm sure if you type in Joel Feren, I'll still come up. And my website is joelferen.com.au. And if you've got questions, comments about this episode, any feedback, or would love some further insights, I'm always happy to be in touch with people. So feel free to get in touch.
Joel, before we wrap up, I've got one final quick game for you called Complete the Sentence. I'll start a sentence and you finish it with the first thing that comes to mind. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
The best piece of advice I ever received was?
Just write the bloody thing. Do you want further context?
No, just finish off the sentence. Perfect. One thing I wish I knew in my career was?
The opportunities that were available to dietitians.
The part of my work that lights me up the most is?
TV.
And then finally, success to me means?
Being busy, working under all the key pillars that I've explained earlier: recipes, content creation, writing articles, presenting, delivering cooking demos and the like. For me, that's success.
Joel, thank you for joining us today. Your career shows that dietetics doesn't have to stop at the clinic. It can expand into media, brand partnerships, and cultural influence. And all of this while obviously staying true to science. So for practitioners listening, let Joel's journey be proof that there are more doors open than you might think. And without further ado, Joel, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show, and we'll see you in the next one.